Make sure to subscribe to the Volume YouTube channel so you can catch all of our shows and get what everybody wants, more of me. So I saw a story this week with Baker in which, he said something about relationships and a discomfort, and Kevin Stefanski came out and said, I thought we got along great. And I thought, this is another just an agitation. Quarterbacks should be lubricators. Lubricate the room. Fall on the sword. Buy your offensive line watches. Just make the machine work, right? And I didn't want to pick on Baker, but I thought, it's so hard. It's every 3 weeks there's a moment. So am I overreacting to this moment? Because Stefanski's reaction was, I thought we got along. He was caught off guard. Take me into what Baker is referring to here, because I tried to read it and I couldn't figure it out.
Well, that one is actually kind of tough because Baker could potentially be referring to a lot of things. It's been a very difficult and stressful season for Baker Mayfield. I mean, in the middle of the season, when your star receiver kind of goes rogue and his father comes out and shares a video that makes you look bad, and you've got LeBron James joining the free OBJ campaign. I mean, you have to remember, right? I mean, you have to remember that, these guys are young and they're human. I mean, these guys are, I understand that quarterbacks are held to a different standard, but really deep down inside, they're just normal human beings. And he's pretty young still. So I think a lot of this has been weighing on him all season long. I think the fact that, he is supposed to be trying to take this team to the Super Bowl, that's what the expectations were this year. Then you couple that with the fact that he's in basically a contract year, even though he still is under contract through next year for the option year. This was really the year to say, show us what you can do to see if you deserve that blockbuster extension. So all of this stuff is going on inside of his mind. And at the same time, he suffers a torn labrum in his shoulder. He breaks a bone in there. He's got a heel injury. He's got a knee. So it's just a lot all wrapped into one for him. And I think he has shown some signs of strain throughout the season. I do also think that there has been a philosophical disconnect, maybe not huge, maybe not irreconcilable differences, but I do think that there's been a little bit of a philosophical disconnect in the way that the offense is run, or the way the games are called for Baker. I think he would love to be aggressive and be the gunslinger and, throw it down the field more, and maybe not always rely so much on Nick Chubb and the 13 personnel with the 3 tight ends. So I just think that that's where that comes in, where there just might be just a little bit of difference of opinion on how best to use him.
So what I would counter with is, okay, don't make it public, right? Like Brady had no dinners in 22 years with Belichick. This was not a harmonious relationship in many instances. But some arguments I have with my wife, most of them, I'm not doing it at a Christmas party or announcing it at work. There are some things, discretion is really important. So if this is true, and I trust your reporting, Baker went public with it. Stefanski, therefore, had to answer for it. And caught in the middle of this is a young, very smart GM named Andrew Berry. Now, Berry, my takeaway, I've talked to 2 executives about this, very respected, very shrewd. The last thing he wants to do is get rid of a coach. I feel like these dominoes, Mary Kay, are adding up. That the sense is, from the outside, is that it's just harder than it should be between the coach and the quarterback. There's just too many moments of something said. The coach has to answer for it. The medical staff, he has to answer for it. Is it fair from my perspective to say, this just looks rocky all the time with this quarterback and this team?
Well, it didn't feel that way last year. Last year, it felt pretty good to Browns fans, to people inside the building, to Baker, to Kevin Stefanski, when they went 11-5 and they made the playoffs and everything was going really well. And really, Baker didn't necessarily go public with his discontent or, his feeling that the offense isn't what he would like it to be. That was more sort of, just me talking to people surrounding him and people that know him and trying to do the kind of reporting that we do. So the only inkling that he gave that he does have an issue with anything is when he came out after the game, this past game against the Ravens, and said, we got conservative. So that was the only time he's ever really let the cat out of the bag, or let a little bit of the cat out of the bag. We got conservative. And I don't think that's the first time he has felt that way. I think that's probably the second or third or fourth time that he's felt that way this season. And he just finally said it. And I don't necessarily think that these are deal breaker issues. And I don't think it's something that, they're butting heads. It's not like that at all. They have an open line of communication. They talk, you see them together, and they seem fine from that standpoint. I just think that there's an undercurrent of, hey, I don't know that they're using me right. And honestly, I don't even know if the coaching staff has, really, felt that or known that or understood that, maybe until Baker said after the game, we got conservative.
This is an owner, I view him as impatient. Perhaps that's unfair. Jerry Jones, for all his vanity and bluster, feels pretty patient. He gave Chan Gailey 3 years. He gave Jason Garrett a lot of years. The Mara family feels patient to me. Stephen Ross of the Dolphins doesn't. The Browns owner doesn't. Do you think currently there are any misgivings, any uneasiness with Stefanski and the ownership in the Browns, or do you think they are still completely behind he and Andrew Berry?
I think they are still completely behind Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry. I think that Jimmy Haslam and Dee Haslam and the ownership group feels that they have finally hit upon that elusive alignment in their building. And it's been bad. I mean, I've covered some really difficult years, many really difficult years where people just did not get along in the building, and there were, F-bombs flying around in there. Aligned, and it is going in the right direction. But I do think that they're at a crossroads. They do have to determine for themselves, do we have our quarterback of the future? This team is built to win. This defense is starting to play like a championship caliber defense. They do have pieces on offense that can help them get to a Super Bowl. They absolutely have to make the determination if Baker Mayfield is their guy. And I asked Andrew Berry that in a press conference about a week or two ago during the bye week. And now Andrew is not one to make bold statements and proclamations about these kinds of things. That's not his personality. It's not what he does. He doesn't talk contract or anything like that. But he didn't say, yeah, he's our guy. We might not get it done right away, but he's our guy. And we have heard the Ravens say that about Lamar. He doesn't have his contract yet, but in no uncertain terms, they have said he is our quarterback. And the Browns haven't said that this year. And I think this is an important thing to note. And I wrote this in a column. I do think it's a two-way street. I think it's a two-way street between Baker Mayfield and his camp. And he has a pretty, he's got a pretty aggressive team like Odell Beckham Jr. does. I mean, he's got a strong team around him. And so I think that they are going to evaluate the situation that he's in the same way the Browns are evaluating Baker. So that's what I mean by it's a two-way street. This isn't a situation where, the Browns are thinking we don't know if we have our guy, and Baker's sitting on the edge of his seat waiting for the offer. I think there's a little bit of, hey, let's all make sure this is the right way to go down the road.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Baker would get another job. Sam Darnold did. There's 9 current teams in the NFL that I think are going to aggressively seek a quarterback. I'm not counting Atlanta. That would be 10 because they have to pay Matt Ryan for a year, but I think they'll draft a quarterback probably in round 2, 3, or 4. I think there's a market for Baker. Again, there was a market for Sam Darnold, who has certainly struggled more than Baker. The Odell situation's interesting. I talked about this on my show. When Stephon Diggs was in Minnesota, he was very productive. Now he's been better in Buffalo, but that's because Josh Allen is considered a more elite quarterback talent than Kirk Cousins. But it's different with Odell. Odell had very little success in Cleveland and now has immediate success with the Rams. You could say that's an indictment of Stefanski. But it generally falls on quarterbacks. That's just what we do, and that's how the narratives get spun. And as I watched Odell Beckham look completely, Mary Kay, comfortable against Arizona on Monday, he had 7-8 targets, he had 6-7 catches, he had a touchdown for the third straight game. He looked really, really comfortable. He beat man coverage. He was open multiple times. I don't think the aesthetics are poor. How does the OBJ thing? Because when his father came out, there were Cleveland players that backed OBJ. I mean, liked him on Instagram. OBJ, as you know, has always been an incredibly popular player in the National Football League among players. Do you think, it felt Monday as I watched him, I thought, it's one thing to be Stephon Diggs and go from productive to super productive. It's another to go from not remotely productive to really quickly productive. The optics are bad to me. Does it feel like that to you at all in Cleveland?
Well, it was just a bad fit. It was just bad karma and a bad fit almost from the start, right? He didn't want to come here. He didn't want to be traded. He felt that Dave Gettleman sent him here to die. We know that. The one thing he had going for him coming here was that his best friend Jarvis was here, and they talked a good game about wanting to win a Super Bowl together here. But it just wasn't good right from the start. He did not want to come here for the offseason program in his first year. Baker and Odell did not practice together that whole entire offseason. That did not help matters at all. But Odell had to wrap his brain around leaving New York and coming to Cleveland, leaving all of his friends, really good friends, Saquon and Sterling and everybody, and leaving the city of New York to come to Cleveland, right? I mean, think about that. That was very, very difficult on him emotionally. And it took such a toll on him that he was not himself for a long time that whole first year. Then he lands in, Freddie Kitchens' world. I mean, it was just so dysfunctional.
Yes.
I mean, it was completely dysfunctional. The quarterback room was over there. The receiver room was over here. And I mean, it was not a fit. But they got through it, Jarvis and Odell, they got through that weird year and they all worked through it. And then when Kevin Stefanski came in, he made the very smart move of making Odell Beckham Jr. feel special, feel valued, let him know that, we are going to do everything we can to get the ball in your hands, and we know what you are, and things are going to change. And they really did try to do that. They did try to do that, but there was still that's when Baker Mayfield didn't really know the offense yet. Kevin Stefanski didn't really know how to use him correctly in the beginning of the season. And it still just wasn't a fit. And that's when, Odell suffered the torn ACL. So once again, it was just, bad, negative sort of vibes going on with Odell and Cleveland. And he really tried. He really tried, because there were some really good things here. I mean, the players are amazing. There's a lot of really good guys on the team. Odell would take those young guys under his wing, teach them everything that he knew. Like you said, Odell is very popular in the locker room.
Oh, yes.
I mean, he's hard to beat in the locker room. He gives these guys headphones and Nike, cleats and shoes and sneakers. And, he really is, he's a gym rat guy's guy, player's player. He's fun to be around. He dances at practice, gets everybody going. So it certainly wasn't like players did not like Odell. It just didn't go well. It just did not go well. The ACL, I mean, who knows how that season would have gone? Maybe it would have gotten better, maybe not. But that wipes him out for that season. And then coming back this year, it got weird. I mean, it just got weird. And if you look at all the times that he has produced only yardage in only the 20s when he was in Cleveland, the number is staggering. It was like once every, I don't know, I can't remember the math right now, but he had yardage in the 20s all the time in Cleveland. And he only had that happen 3 times in 59 games in New York. In Cleveland, it was just constant lack of production. Then it turned into lack of targets. And I went to the Chargers game, and I watched him after the game, and he had a lot of friends there. he had family members that had a field side suite, and he had, his mom was there, his dad was there, his girlfriend was there. He had all kinds of NBA players stopping by. This was before the game, and he wanted to put on a show. LeBron was there. I mean, it was Odell time. And I think he may have he dropped a pass early. He was pretty hyped up. He dropped a pass early, and I think Baker lost trust in Odell's ability to catch the ball for him. And they just didn't have some kind of connection. One of my theories is the fact that I think sometimes when you have a player that has played his whole entire career with one quarterback, like Odell did with Eli, I think there was an adjustment period, or I thought there was an adjustment period to Baker. Now that I'm seeing him with Matt Stafford, now I'm thinking, okay, well, that theory kind of goes out the window. It was just a disconnect between Baker and Odell. And he sat on a bench after that game with his head down, and it was a road trip, and you can't really spend too much time, hanging out on the field. But he did. He just sat there with his head down on that field. And I knew then that it was basically over, that he knew that this was not going to get better for him. And so it didn't surprise me as they went along and, in the next week, and what happened. But it just, and the other thing real quick is that these two tried to make it work this off season. They spent time together. Baker's wife got to know Odell's girlfriend. Odell did things he usually doesn't do in the offseason, like go to Austin, Texas for Camp Mayfield. I mean, that's not Odell. I mean, he's usually all over the country, but he did it, and he tried, and Baker tried. Odell also went out to Montana with, Baker and Jarvis and Austin Hooper and just a couple of guys, and on Memorial Day weekend before the season. So they made an effort to develop this relationship, and it just didn't work on the field. And now I think you can see that Odell is the amazing receiver that we thought he was. He is still that.
Sometimes I'll go down kind of the rabbit hole of Cleveland Brown Twitter, because I do like to hear local radio and how kind of the perspective in kind of the belly of the beast. And I think in the last 6 weeks, I've been the more moderate voice on some of this stuff. There's been a lot of negative Mayfield reaction by talk show hosts and media. So give me a little update today. If you did a straw poll on, you took 20 people in the Cleveland sports media, where do they stand on Mayfield today?
I think that I think it would probably be divided right now. Maybe probably right down the middle. I mean, it's easier to get a gauge on how fans feel. And I think that that's probably about 50-50 now too. I think that 50, I think about at least 50% of fans are still 100% in Baker Mayfield's corner. But I do sense that, I mean, it's grown, to about 50% wondering what if he is the guy anymore. And some people really climbing off the bandwagon. But I think that is why Baker Mayfield has taken the gloves off a little bit to say, hey, look, we're getting conservative in certain situations. I think he's saying, I'm hurt. He
is.
He's tough as nails.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
This is one thing about Baker Mayfield. Nobody can ever argue with this about Baker Mayfield. He is tough as nails, never wants to come out for a play, never wants to miss a game. I know this is killing him, that he is probably going to sit out this game. And unless he gets some kind of a Christmas miracle, he's not going to be able to play against the Raiders. And I know that's killing him because he wanted to come back and get this team into the playoffs. And he had a better game against the Ravens, at least in the first half. And then again, he feels like the second half, he's trying to tell people, it wasn't me. We got conservative, right? Like I wanted to score 20 points in the second half. So I think now he's trying to say, look, and he's not beating the drum too loudly about all this stuff, but I think he's trying to explain why some things have gone for him the way they have.
Yeah, he's defending himself. He's defending his brand, his personality. He has a right to do that. When I go down that Cleveland Brown rabbit hole, Twitter hole, which is a pretty vile, over emotional place, I see now people questioning Kevin Stefanski's game plans. I think he's a really bright young guy. I think he feels like the right fit. I think there's a certain stature and confidence about him I really like. He's stoic when need be, very word efficient at the podium. He's just a really bright guy. I interviewed Zach Taylor about a month ago, and Zach and Stefanski are really bright guys. They know what not to say as much as they do what to say. Where's the support with him? It's fairly predictable, Mary Kay, that the coach is easier to fire than the quarterback is to find. So if there's a struggle, we got to get rid of Joe Judge when Daniel Jones is probably the issue, right? Where do fans sit? I know the media is pro Stefanski, but where do fans sit on Stefanski now?
I do get a lot of, emails and, tweets and messages and all that kind of stuff that people do seem to have a problem with the play calling. And I think it resonated with fans when Baker said, we got conservative. I had so many people, on Twitter and everywhere else saying, he's right. They did get conservative. And why do they do this? Why do they do that? Some of what they have had to do this season has been by necessity.
That's right. Injuries.
Baker's been hurt.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and you don't want to make excuses for a football team, right? But really, this football team, there has been no continuity all season long on the offensive side of the ball. Odell's gone. Jarvis has been hurt. Jarvis is not himself this season. Jarvis has not been himself. Their left tackle, Jed Wills, has not been himself most of the season. Their right tackle is out for the season. Yeah. Rashard Higgins fell off the map. It was just a weird season. Kareem Hunt has been out for much of the season. Now, if you put all those pieces back together, then I think Kevin Stefanski calls a more aggressive game plan.
Yeah.
You can do that when, you can take a few more shots downfield when you have two solid offensive tackles there for you. And when you've got your weapons. I mean, they haven't had a deep threat since Odell Beckham Jr. left.
Yeah.
Okay. A speedy deep threat. They haven't had that. And I mean, it's just a fact. You can look out there and see that it's not there. They would have used Anthony Schwartz in that regard, even though he's a rookie and he's kind of raw and he was set back by a hamstring injury. Still, I mean, you can take that speed and throw him on a go route and at least have something that can stretch a defense. Yeah. Well, they don't have that right now. They don't have that. So you can stack that box and you can force Baker Mayfield to try to throw and make him beat you. I think there have been extenuating circumstances for him this year. And I do think that it is hard to get a real, true evaluation on what he's all about.